The Time Shift.
Hello and welcome to this week's episode of The Time Shift. This week I'm reviewing the latest episode of Doctor Who titled Lux, and we kick off this review as we always do in these reviews by talking about the story, the writing and tangentially related matters. This week's episode is titled Lux, aka the Cuphead episode, because as soon as that trailer came out everyone was like, whoa, it looks like something out of Cuphead, whoa! Because yeah, that animation style never existed before Cuphead came along. Yes, I suppose this episode really is supposed to be a reference to Max Fleischer, though without, any references to Max Fleischer, or indeed any other animation studio or animator of the era that they're referencing. For an episode that is so focused around a cartoon character villain, there's next to no references to any cartoons whatsoever. I know they can't really do that as far as copyright is concerned, but let's just think about this. This feels like it's an episode that should be to somewhere or another like a tribute to classic animation, to one degree or another, like I say, but there really is next to none, and it feels as though this animation style has been picked because, oh hey, it looks old, and oh hey, Cuphead's kind of a thing. That kind of colours the rest of the review, because that's something of a spontaneous statement on my half, but still, to be positive, I will just say is that something I really did like about this episode, and it's something I do like about this second era of Russell T Davies more generally, is that we do have an episode which is just bonkers and weird and strange. I don't think that every single element of it really lands, but the stuff that does land is well executed and well put together. I do like the fact that we can have episodes that are just as bonkers and as strange and as crazy as this. It has an odd feeling that is reminiscent of the second Doctor era, the Patrick Troughton era, where a lot of those episodes felt as though they had a Silver Age comic book kind of feel to it, where you can have episodes which are just this bonkers and this strange, and I do enjoy that. Yes, I would like a few more hard science fiction episodes. Yes, I would like some more period set episodes and a few more contemporary set episodes, but hey, if we're gonna get crazy silly nuts, we might as well get this kind of crazy silly nuts, even if, like I say, certain elements of it don't particularly land for me. This is an episode which definitely felt like a Stephen Moffat episode, for good or for ill, as certainly during the time period we'll be talking about Doctor Who on this channel, pretty much all the Stephen Moffat episodes that I've covered, a lot of them suffer from the same problem, which is the fact that the episodes themselves are set around or feature a lot of really great and spectacular set pieces, but they're not really supported by a strong enough storyline. They're not really given much of a build-up into those set-piece moments, and those set-piece moments themselves don't really have anything to come off of them or hang on to them. They're great and brilliant moments that really do stand out in a trailer and do get the fans talking and speculating, but within the episode themselves, they are just kind of interesting set pieces. They look great, they are spectacular, they're really something that catches your attention, but beyond that, they're just kind of there, and this episode is one of those that really does have that issue. Like the big moment where Mr. Ring-a-Ding-Ding is climbing out of the cinema screen. That's fantastic. That's a really great, arresting image. There's a reason why I think that visual image alone built up a lot of goodwill going into this series. A lot of people probably are watching this episode or watching this series off the back of that image alone. So, yes, that image in and of itself is spectacular, but the rest of the episode itself doesn't quite live up to that. Like I said in my rather impromptu and not scripted moment towards the start of this review, it does feel very weird to me that you'd have an episode where an animated cartoon character is the villain and you have next to nothing that really plays into that. Be that from just a pure gags point of view, and I mean gags in like the horror movie sense of how people are offed or taken away, or even just in a historical reference kind of way. We do kind of get that at the very beginning where Mr. Ring-a-Ding-Ding is talking to the cartoon woman and she is a very deliberate play on Betty Boop, but beyond that, it really does feel like a case of, okay, what's popular right now? Oh, Cuphead is, so let's do something that looks kind of like Cuphead but creepy. And there's also, what is he, Inky or Bendy, the little like creepy pasta horror movie video game character thing. So it feels like more nods to contemporary interpretations of classic cartoons more so than is necessarily a tribute to them. And I think that the absence of that does take something away from it. I mean, I don't necessarily think this episode needed to be some big geek fest for all the animation nuts and animation historians, but it does end up making the episode feel like it's more lent by the visual image than necessarily anything beyond that. Because we do get hints throughout the episode of potentially something bigger here, even if in some regards it feels very deliberate. The episode starts with a nuclear blast, and in my notes I wrote nukes dash moral, as though, oh, the moral of the story is going to be don't use nukes, don't build nukes, because Mr. Ring-a-Ding-Ding will have been created via a nuke or something like that. And then we have the bit where the Doctor and Belinda go into the cafe and they make reference to a segregation thing. Okay, is that going to be the theme of the episode? And in the end, those things aren't, and, well, they're just there before the sense of historical context, which is fine. It does mean that whilst some people may take issue with the fact that that would be the subtext, it would mean the episode itself had some degree of subtext, even though I think the subtext of this episode is ultimately setting up for the big mystery reveal as to who and what Belinda is towards the end of this series. Because the episode in and of itself beyond that is just fine. It is a lot of, well, I'd say not, it isn't even a lot of that. Like, all the big interesting stuff that we get in this episode beyond just the visual image of Mr. Ring-a-Ding-Ding climbing through the cinema screen and then becoming a real boy. Beyond that, again, there's not much to really do as far as references to animation is concerned. The fact that our villain is a cartoon character doesn't really play in too much of anything, aside from a couple gags here and there, like the thing of, oh, whenever his theme tune is playing, he has to dance to it, but that's just about it. And of course, you get the moment in the episode where the Doctor and Belinda become cartoon characters, and I can't be the only one that took the takeaway from that I think that Russell T Davies doesn't like animation. Like, am I the only one that took away from that he really doesn't like animation, and he doesn't think it has emotional depth to it? Because, oh darling, people in glass houses really shouldn't throw stones. Because whilst he may well think that animation itself lacks in emotional depth, there is a vast amount of it out there which has a far greater sense of emotional depth and emotional intelligence, and regrettably a lot of the Russell T Davies Mark II era, and even just the Russell T Davies Mark I era of Doctor Who. I know I shouldn't take issue with this because I don't think it was meant how it was meant. It was possibly more of a dig to the rather low quality, cheap animation that they were kind of referencing within that moment, as it was a very heavy reference to certain degrees Hanna-Barbera, but also to the Ruby Spears Scooby-Doo such and such as well, which, sure, okay, but that's not really what those cartoons were about, but okay. But given just how few real animation references or nods here and there are actually within the episode itself, I think I'm reading a lot more into a joke than really was supposed to be read into, as like I say, there's not really much to do that really plays with animation, that really plays with cartoons, to quite the extent that you would have thought, given that our villain, once again, is a cartoon character. Oh sure, there's supposed to be this big god of light thing, but at the end of the day, it's the Doctor versus a Cuphead monster. Or rather a Max Fleischer thing, but you get the idea. Folks at home aren't going to go, this is a Max Fleischer reference. They're going to go, this is a Cuphead reference, and yes, for an episode, once again, that's centered around a big animated bad guy, there's not that many references to animation. There's a lot more references to fourth wall breaking, which of course ends up leading us to the big fourth wall break, which was neat when it started. I just think it went on a little bit too long. This is, of course, referencing the scene where the Doctor pushes through the fourth wall and ends up in the living room of a handful of Doctor Who fans, each of them wearing their own special Doctor Who merchandise, because that's what all Doctor Who fans do, or at least the modern christened era of Doctor Who fans. I know I shouldn't critique, I know I shouldn't wag my finger, but good God, why is it whenever fans are depicted in anything, they're always with the merchandise, and they're always with the toys and the gimmicks and such all around them? I was going to say, Jesus, well, let's be honest, there are quite a few that still do have a wealth of that. I have never bought any piece of merchandise in my entire life for anything. It's always been gifted to me. That's my defense with this. I'm not that sad. I'm a different flavour of sad. I'm the kind of sad that spends every single week talking about anime and manga, bearing in mind I'm not an anime and manga person. But with that said, regardless, I did like the scene itself when it kicked off. I like the idea of it, again, going back to this whole crazy second Doctor era of just Silver Age comic book bonkers. But I think that the scene itself went on a little bit too long, and as such my goodwill towards it started to fade away. Not to the point where I was actively against it, but it does feel like a case of you can almost see the moment in the script where the writer realised, oh, this is such a great scene, oh bugger, I've ripped myself into a corner. Because the idea of the Doctor meeting some real life actual Doctor Who fans, not an in-universe fan in the way that Osgood was back in the Stephen Moffat era, like an actual our world Doctor Who fan, is a great idea, and I like that in concept. And doing it even just for a gag like this, like the thing of they're all talking about what their favourite episode of Doctor Who is, and they all talk about Blink, and then when they explain what the episode Blink is about, oh, it's the episode where you're not allowed to blink, just boiling an episode down to that is a great gag, because it just makes Doctor Who sound even more crazy and bonkers than it is. I love that gag, I like that moment, I like the thing of the Doctor and the fans just meeting in that moment, even if it is shown in a kind of stereotypical way. I like it. But the problem is, I suppose, twofold. First of all, is the fact that they've already done a fourth wall break with the episode itself. Then, or rather with the scene itself. Then when in that scene you have the character that makes references to script leaks. Great, another joke, but there's a kind of a part of me that was thinking, okay, given everything that has leaked about this series thus far, wouldn't it be funny, or kooky, crazy, spooky, scary, wacky, if one of the things that they then referenced was like a heavy nod or a heavy leak for what's coming towards the end of this season? Like, they make a heavy link as to who or what Belinda really is. Or maybe they make a reference to, or a fake leak. Like, they make a fake leak to something that actually isn't going to happen in the final episode, and it acts as like a red herring. So everyone thinks, oh crikey, the Daleks going to be back. They're the real bad guys of this series, this season. Oh my god, but then it turns out to be someone else. You know, that would be fun. That would be funny, but that's not quite what we ended up getting. Just a case of, okay, did you know that old film stock's really fucking flammable? Well, I mean, I do, because I used to work in a cinema, and I suppose that... Well, actually, no, within the episode itself, they also say, yeah, it's really flammable, so we already know how it's all going to get resolved, even though it doesn't quite make sense, but I think that more could have been done with the leak stuff to just make it funnier. I also don't like the weird emotional turn that we get in the episode where, oh, actually, Doctor, you're not the one that's fictional, we are. And when you leave here, we won't exist anymore. Oh no, how sad. And okay, but why though? Like, we didn't really need that. I suppose, again, it's a case of Russell T Davies realising, oh crap, I've just referenced the fact that the Doctor doesn't exist. And they don't exist not just within the context of our universe, but also within the context of the Doctor Who universe. Oh crap, what do I do? It turns out the people that we thought were real aren't real, and everything's back to normal. It kind of reminds me of the Red Dwarf special they did like 20 years ago, where they travelled to Earth, and Red Dwarf in the context of Earth is fictional and it's a fake, and then at the end of the episode they realise, oh, actually the planet Earth is fake and everything on there is fake, and we're the real ones. And it makes sense in the context of Red Dwarf, because they do all these kind of mind-bending, fourth wall, timey-wimey stuff all the time. And Doctor Who doesn't quite do it to this extent. So it ends up feeling less like a thing of, oh, let's do something cool and wacky, more like, oh crap, we've hit a brick wall, how do we get around that? I will admit that talking about that scene does run the risk of us going full forced into how I would have done it territory, but it does feel like a case of just, it didn't quite hit the landing for me, because I think the moment they put emotion into it, that's when it just kind of fell flat for me. Just beyond that, I just think that the emotional beats within this episode didn't work for me, because more often than not they felt awkwardly put in. It's almost like Russell T Davies ripped the entire episode and then realised, oh crap, there's no emotional hooks to any of this, let's put some emotional hooks into it, but rather than rewriting the entire thing, we just added some extra scenes and moments here and there. Like we have with this moment of, oh, we're not the real ones that exist, you're the one that exists and that, and we're not going to exist when you leave here, and you're not going to think of us ever again. And you can almost guarantee that within a couple of years' time, there's probably going to be audio books and comic books referencing these characters ad nauseum for the next 5 years. So yeah, they're never getting lost or forgotten anytime soon. And the other emotional moment that I think fell flat for me was with the Projectionist. Like, there's a character I think needed to be in the episode more, because the whole thing of why he's doing this and why he's playing all these things for Mr. Ring-a-Ding-Ding and his connection to him, I think that in itself needed building out more. That he is this unwitting participant to all of this, or maybe he is a willing participant to it. Maybe he is setting this all up as a trap because Mr. Ring-a-Ding-Ding is the only way which he's able to see his lost love. I know I'm going into how I would have done it territory, but I think that the scene where he gets to meet his lost love, his lost fiancée, I think's a really great bit. I really like that scene, how it's put together. I like the cinematography of it. I like the thing of that for a moment she's in black and white, but then she just fades in just normal skin tones. I really do love that, and the whole thing of her being the one that passes him the matches it in the end to destroy the cinema. That would have been a fantastic moment had he been more of a character and we got a better understanding of the trauma and the pain that he was going through. Like they make a thing of, oh, I can tell that we need your matches. I can tell you're a smoker because I can see the nicotine on your hands. So what if the reason why he smokes as much as he is because of the trauma of it and he's trying to make sense of it? Like, he should have been the emotional core to the episode, not these random fanboy, fangirl characters that we introduced for the sake of a gag scene. He should have been the emotional core of it, because at the end of the day, it's him. He's losing himself in cinema. He's losing himself in culture. He's immersing himself in it because he doesn't want to live with the reality that his lost love is gone. So then the subtext of this episode becomes about trauma and dealing with it. Because that's another element I think the episode was missing, was subtext. The nuke stuff felt as though it was going to be a thing at the beginning. Then you had stuff about segregation and race, which at the end of the day is just historical context. Okay, sure, fine, historical context, that is fine. But beyond that, we just get a thigh-slapping, fun Doctor Who adventure, which is perfectly fine. But even within the thigh-slapping Doctor Who adventures, there's usually some kind of emotional core to it. And I think the episode was missing that, because if you aren't going to have all these crazy gags of this cartoon character using their cartoon powers to knock people in the head and kidnap them or what have you, then you need something else to go in here. We get fourth wall breaking stuff, which is fine in and of itself, but it's an episode which lacks an emotional core, and that for me is the biggest problem with the episode itself. It needed more of an emotional core to it. With that said, I will just say that one more thing on the fourth wall breaking. I think the post-credit thing that they should have had should have been the 3 fans watching the episode of Doctor Who and just kind of slagging it off, kind of like they were doing, and it should have just panned over to Russell T Davies going, alright, fine! You write your own episode, I'm done with it! Knacker still a lot of you, then with a fun little gag to end it all. If nothing else, if you're gonna do the fourth wall breaking stuff, you really need to play into it, because everyone and their goddamn mother is doing fourth wall breaking stuff, doing meta commentary stuff. If you're gonna do that, go full force into it. Don't do it on this half-baked level, which this episode did, because at the end of the day, a lot of the cool ideas in this are half-baked. We have a cartoon character, monster, bad guy, who at the end of the day doesn't do cartoon character, monster, bad guy things. We have fourth wall breaking that does it on the most surface level way possible. We've done this stuff before. And in Doctor Who, I'd have expected something a little bit more to it. But it's just done for the sake of spectacle. It's done for the sake of set dressing. It's done for the sake of set pieces, which is regrettable, because you could have done some spectacular stuff here. Now, this will be the point in the video where I talk about performances, but we are running rather late into the review itself. And I will just say is that everyone did a great job with the material they're in. with the exception of the side characters, because I think they were a bit too stereotypical. Oh, gee golly willikers, it's the 1950s, Batman! I think they went a little bit too far with that again. Kutigawa does well, even though it does feel as though the Doctor wasn't given much of a chance to be the Doctor once again. Veranda Sethu, I apologise, I've got the name wrong. Belinda did good with the material there. I think Alan Cummings was great as the voice of Mr. Ring-a-Ding-Ding, even though I do think as though more could have been done with that character, because it feels like if you're going to have a cartoon character bad guy, you should do cartoon character things. With that said, let's get into the overview and say that I think that this is almost a great episode. But I think there's certain elements of it that just don't quite land. I think that it lacks a really strong emotional core. I think that the fact that our villain is a cartoon character, like I say, isn't really utilised to the extent it should be, and it all just ends up feeling like what's popular right now. 1920s, 30s cartoon characters done in a creepy way, so let's do that. And also because Doctor Who is now dealing with vague ideas of gods and deities right now. They had to be a time, space, god thing that only came into existence by freak circumstance, which, okay, I suppose if we're doing that, we're doing that. But in any case, with all that said and done, let us get into Comment Corner. It's time for Comment Corner, and we got a comment from Big X1 who says, and this is from the previous episode, which was a review of the episode The Robot Revolution. They said, I will need to rewatch this one as I saw it first thing. I liked more than the other Disney episodes, but the stuff with, that's either AI or Al, but you know how these typefaces go. The stuff with that was weird. Thank you for your comment, and yeah, I think that I still don't know personally where I sit with that. I think at the end of the day, I probably dislike the episode more than I like it. Because up until that final act, I was really on board with the episode. He just bungled it in the execution in the end. And I think that this episode, pound for pound, is a lot stronger. Even though it does feel a little bit too surface level for my liking, I do think it's a good episode. Like, I don't want to be one of those people that says, Doctor Who's back, guys, because, well, I don't think it is. I think it's too premature to do that. And let's be honest, if you ever even utter the idea that Doctor Who might be in some way good again, even just for the sake of an episode or two, people are getting upset by that. But hey, welcome to the landscape of modern science fiction discourse, where everything fucking sucks all the time, and if it doesn't, you're a fucking shill. With all that said, however, let's just say thank you all for listening, thank you all for watching, and leave me a comment down below and let me know what you thought about this particular episode. Thank you all for watching, and see you next time. Goodbye! Thanks for watching. Be sure to like, favourite, subscribe, click the bell, and do all the YouTubey stuff that YouTube wants you to do. Go on, it'll do me a power of good. Until next time, my friends, goodbye!